Hey Jenny, can you believe it? We've recorded over 10 episodes of the Wallflowers of Bloom podcast.
And it was all possible thanks to Anchor.
Let us explain.
With Anchor, there are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
And you know what else? Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more.
Which is awesome because it's the first time that we created a podcast. We also upload to Castbox and Stitcher, but there is more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenerships, which is awesome.
Yes, it is. We found that out. It's everything you need to start your podcast in one place.
Kind of like those big chain stores that have groceries, hardware, and more. That's kind of
Exactly.
awesome.
It is awesome, right?
So what are you waiting for? Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
We did.
Hello and welcome to Wallflowers in Bloom.
A podcast where we share the joys and challenges of being introverts.
I'm Jenny.
And I'm Eric.
Each episode we share with you stories and antidotes that touch on how we prosper and thrive in a world dominated by extroverts.
We also have guest speakers who share their experience and expertise on this topic and read letters from our fellow Wallflower listeners on how they cope and conquer.
So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and relax with us.
Music is by Nate Johnson. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Wallflowers in Bloom. Today we have our guest speaker who is Naomi. Welcome, Naomi.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me, Jenny and Eric.
Thank you for being here. We like to start off our episodes with a little bit of weekend review, mental check-in. Just to give you kind of a taste of it, Jenny, would you like to start off?
It's been pretty smooth sailing. Again, just kind of homeschooling and navigating that mental health wise. I'm feeling my feelings and keep moving forward, but it's not stopping my day. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
One exciting thing is I got my Ipsy shop up for my earrings, my crochet earrings and tops. So we'll definitely put a link on the website if you guys are interested.
Yes.
You guys can head over there and order some earrings or some cute little crochet tops, and I will get them out as fast as I can.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yes, that was my highlight.
Okay. How about you, Naomi? How was your week?
Yeah, thank you guys for asking. So, my week has been busy, but it's been good. I've been waking up every day about 9 a.m. to prepare for working out and having classes. It was really smooth. As far as my mental health, it's interesting that you asked this question. My mental health, it's been really good, but this week it kind of flaked a bit. And that was because recently, and I won't go in too deep, I promise, but I saw this episode on Netflix called Our Social Dilemma that really talks about just how close we are to our cell phones and social media. And that really affected my mental health for a few days, with just me thinking, well, am I on social media too much? Should I maybe pull back? But I will say that today I am feeling really good. And really thanks to you, Eric. I actually called Eric last night because I was almost to the point of, I don't know what to do. And we kind of like helped and talked, and so it was really good. So I'm feeling really good today.
I definitely want to check out that documentary because I do worry myself. But I forgot to mention, as people know, I'm still in England and Jenny is in Los Angeles. And where are you at, Naomi?
Yes, I'm in Croatia.
How are you enjoying it there?
Oh my God, guys, can I just say, I recommend Croatia to every single being on this earth. It is gorgeous, beautiful, so calm and peaceful. It's amazing.
That's awesome. And how long have you been there?
I've been here for 1 month exactly.
For me, my week has been pretty good. Yeah, mental health that stood out to me a little bit more today. I continuing to be reminded that I just need to stay hopeful and positive, and not that I'm lapsing, but I'm a warrior. I'll just put that out there. I used to blame it on my mother because she was a worrier. Maybe it's genetic, I don't know. Part of my journey that I've been on now, less than a month away from a year that I've been out of the US, and that just is kind of blowing my mind. One of the biggest things that I'm learning to embrace is just to have faith. I've mentioned before that I'm not a religious person, but I've been spiritual in the last several years. But it's only been in the last couple years that I've realized that having that anchor, a positive outlook on life, it gives me permission now to have faith in myself, which means that most days are good, but some days I do lapse into just worry. And this is
Yeah.
all sitting outside in a beautiful backyard, sipping a cup of tea. Somebody driving by will be like, oh, he looks so peaceful, but inside,
It's
there's a
always
storm a
inside.
brewing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always inside.
Yeah.
Always inside, yeah. But people like you, Naomi, and others that I've come across just through social media. Yeah, social media has its dark sides, but one of the benefits is being able to connect with people like you.
Mhm.
And it really does save my emotional and my mental well-being and my spiritual well-being because I can still revert back to the sky is gonna fall. Why don't I go down to the nearest grocery store right now, pick up my shopping
Mhm.
cart because I'm gonna need it later. It just goes there. It's not that things are bad, it's just that I need to continue to work on that. So yeah, that's how my week has been. I'm really thankful that I'm able to be here where I'm at right now, around great people, around great energy, and just really thankful. So yeah, that's how my week has been.
Sometimes our feelings or our emotions don't have a like rationality. Like you said, Eric, you're in this beautiful place in this beautiful area, and just all of a sudden inside all these things start coming
Mhm.
up, and that's okay. And you
Mhm.
kind of feel them and be
Yeah.
there in the moment. Everybody has different methods of dealing with them. Some people do breathing, some people make themselves busy so they can push them down. Like, everybody has different ways of coping. And if you know your way of coping, you go for it. But there is no right or wrong, and there is no rationale to them, which can be
Mhm.
No,
frustrating because you want to know, like, why am I feeling this way? And it's like, you know what? It's just one of those days.
right,
It's just
Right.
exactly.
one of
Yeah.
those
Exactly.
days.
It's one of those days, yeah. That
So,
somebody said to me years ago, some days it's just gonna feel like crap, and that's just the way it is.
so I want to know, Eric, how do you know Naomi?
I'll let Naomi answer that question.
Okay, well, again, Jenny, audience, hello everybody. So, I am the founder of Diverse Vegan, which is a online community platform that's geared to just speaking about things plant-based, but also as an unbiased approach to people who are just looking for healthy alternatives. At Diverse Vegan, I'm not here to push veganism, but more so help people along their journey. And so part of the ways that I do that is I have a Instagram series whereby I bring people on the show to talk about either being a digital nomad or mindfulness, their spiritualism within veganism. So it has an array of topics. And I came across Eric from Wendy, who's known as Nomadic Vegan on Instagram. And she did this blog post about vegan Black travelers. And I read his little short bio, if you will, and I
Mhm.
reached out to him and I asked him, I said, I really felt inspired by your page. Would you like to be on my Instagram show? And it was so funny and interesting at the same time, Jenny, because Eric at that time, he was just telling himself, well, I don't really just do this. I'm not in front of a camera. I'm not a camera type of speaker. I do things from an audio perspective. And I was like, oh my God, he's totally going to tell me no. But he went ahead and it turned out to be a really great segment.
I'm really thankful that you reached out to me, and it was actually perfect timing because Jenny and I had been talking about taking our platform to that level of not full time, but maybe every now and again having a video feed and creating a YouTube channel. So it was perfect timing, and it was perfect timing too because I think you reached out to me right before I left Sweden in
Mhm.
July. And I was coming to England, and at the time, I didn't even know you were in England, and then found out you were. We weren't in the same city. You were in Manchester, and I
Mhm.
was in London, but it was great connecting. Even in text, I just loved your energy. There's just this positivity, this openness, this happiness
Mhm.
that I think is contagious in a good way. And so, yeah, I was more than happy to do the interview, and I'm really glad I was able to do that. Also, to discover your website and then your series on Instagram. I watched three of them. Two that stood out to me was the couple that travel as vegans.
Mhm.
That one was a really good one. And to hear a couple's perspective with not only being vegan, but traveling internationally and living in different parts of the world as you've been doing now. And how long have you been on this journey of
Of
of,
traveling?
of
Yeah.
traveling? Yes.
Yeah, guys. So it's been 7 years. I'm from Chicago. When I do go, I maybe go for a few weeks or maybe a few months. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's been a long time.
Before I forget, so that we can satisfy our audience's curiosity, would you identify yourself as an introvert or an extrovert?
I am definitely an extrovert, guys.
Well, we welcome you too.
Thank you.
Yes.
But I have introverted capabilities, especially as I've gotten older.
So when I think of nomads and travelers, I always think of extroverted people. I'm like, I could
Mhm.
never do that. But then Eric went on this adventure. I'm like, yes, it's possible.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
can do it too.
Our platform is about acknowledging that part of ourselves, but not using it as for me, as an excuse to
To not
not
do.
to not live life. And part of that is connecting with other extroverts, which have been a part of my life all my
Yeah.
life. I'm usually drawn to people who are very dynamic in personality because it warms me, it fuels me, and it encourages me to do what I want to do too. So I thank
Yeah.
you, people like you, for that.
Thank you,
Yeah,
extroverts.
thank you. Sounds like a commercial now. We
I
thank
know.
you.
We- With the ding.
Ding.
Now, is there something you were always aware of? Have you always been like aware that I can have an easier conversation with somebody or have an easier time connecting with people? Is that something you've always been aware of? That's
Yeah, Jenny, great question. So I remember when I was young, right? So I grew up in Chicago, South Side, a family full of women. These strong leaders, they're very vocal. So I feel like when I was born, I was kind of just born into that of being just that person who's just always just excited. But it was funny because when I was young, what reminds me to this day of how extroverted I was, downstairs in the basement, my mother and grandmother would have weekend parties in the basement, right? So you have all these people, you have Prince and Michael Jackson, all these people on the vinyl records, and all the kids were supposed to stay upstairs. But not Naomi. Naomi would come down and I would tie my shirt up like Madonna at that time because apparently
Oh, wow.
I had this fetish for Madonna, and so I would come down in my mom's big hat, and I would just go to start dancing around, and they was like, "Naomi, get your butt upstairs." So I feel like it's always been a part of me.
that reminds me of my daughter. She's so extroverted and she's just so out there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, it's like a testament to like that was just who you were born to be. And
Mhm.
thankfully you were surrounded by people that it seems like supported that energy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Sounds like you were just a very people person.
I've always loved people, guys. I've never been one to shy away. I do have two sisters, so I'm the middle. So my oldest and my youngest sisters, they're more of the introverts. So they're pretty shy. They're okay with just kind of just staying in the background. And so for me, I definitely think I get that from my mother and my grandmother. Yeah, just being a people person, but I always knew how to maybe calm it down. Like if someone wasn't really on that energetic level. I just love people, so I just was able to adapt and show empathy from a very young age.
Now, what brought about your career change from banking to what you're currently doing?
Such a great question, Jenny. So, I went to school for corporate communications and finance. Again, growing up south side of Chicago, we didn't have any male role models in my family. So, strong women would say, Naomi, you have to work in corporate America. That's the only way you're going to make it.
Yeah.
And so I got my bachelor's corporate communications and finance. And so right after that, I went into finance. Yeah, I was making money. I was doing that for about 8 years. So I was doing everything from mortgages to personal loans to automobile loans. And so because it's a sales industry, you
Yeah.
can make a lot of money just off commission. So I had the money, I had the cars, I had the house, I had the dog, the cat, the boyfriend, all of those things, but I wasn't happy. I remember 8 years I would come home and I would just cry. And I never told my family because I didn't want them to think of me as being weak or just not enjoying what I was doing. But I was with my boyfriend and he would kind of comfort me and say, Naomi, you're amazing. You'll figure it out. You'll figure out if this is what you want to do or not. And so, like I said, I did that for 8 years. And then in 2013, I woke up one day and I said, I quit. I'm going to go into the job today and I'm going to quit. And I'm going to live off of my savings until I figure out what it is I want to do. And at that time, thank goodness my boyfriend was supportive. He was working at the time. And also, I was the head of the household, if you will, because I was making so much money. So yeah, I quit in 2013. In between that time, I've always loved Brazil. I also learned Portuguese during those 8 years, and I love the culture. I just love everything about Brazil. So I said, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get to Brazil. And then I ended up a few months later getting a volunteer opportunity to teach. And guys, I didn't know anything about teaching. All I knew was how to make money, right? So I was like, I don't know anything about kids. And at that time, I still was an extrovert, but in such a different way. So now I was thinking, how can I be energetic to kids? So I said, okay, let me try it. And the rest is history.
Sounds like that may have been something that was always there, this desire to see more than what you grew up around.
My grandmother was the matriarch of the family who was the traveler. My mother didn't travel, my aunts didn't travel, my sisters didn't travel. So I
Mhm,
really feel as though that bounced through generations. And so I used to watch wrestling and travel shows with her. And we
mhm,
used to go and watch WWF. And so I got a taste of that travel and being more of a people person through her. So I would
mm.
agree. I think that that is what was missing.
Now, you mentioned quitting. Like, was it literally the day you decided was the day you quit?
I put in 2 weeks.
Ah, okay. I just had a movie montage in my head, like,
Yeah, I put in my 2 weeks, and everyone was super surprised. Yeah, I'm
okay.
sorry, I didn't just up and quit. I did it respectfully.
I pictured coming in with the box and saying, you know what? Today is the last day.
Peace out.
Peace.
That is an amazing story. There is something about us finance people who have a hidden desire for art and travel because
Yes.
we've had a few guests on here who have a finance background. I have a
Mhm.
finance background,
Okay.
and they're like, we're just not happy. We're doing this because we were told to do this.
Yes. So, Jenny, let me ask you then. You coming from a finance background, what was it that made you say, this is it for me?
So I did have one corporate job
Mm-hmm.
that I did walk out of. I literally got up and just walked out. At the end, it was a really toxic environment. And that was like my first attempt at kind of getting out there. But then at that time, I was going through a divorce. I had my daughter, and I was like, nope, I need stability. So I found another job with a construction company, which was amazing. I loved them because I got to go out and kind of not just sit at my desk so much, as in actually go out into the field and see how things are done. And even though I'm not the most social person, I really enjoyed being around all the guys and just listening to them joke around and, just being
Mm-hmm.
in that environment. So I really enjoyed that. But with Corona, I actually got let go or laid off, I guess. And at this point, as I'm going looking, I realized I don't want to go back. I don't
Yeah.
want to go back to the cubicle life. And truly, it was an inspiration more by Eric because I'm like, you know what? I want to set my own path. So that's what I've been doing. So right now, I'm in the very, very beginning stages. I've decided to do a little bit of like freelance bookkeeping. It is something that I want to keep going, keep moving. And I think I got the opportunity right now. And also with my daughter and stuff, I feel like I need that
Mm-hmm.
flexibility.
I know a little bit of your story, Naomi, from reading your bio, and of course, you're coloring it more now. And then what you're going through, Jenny, the other day, the radio was on. That came up. A lot of people have been laid off from work because of the pandemic, but they've been interviewing people. One woman they interviewed, and she's like, you know what? I have a passion for, I forget what it was. It was something creative. And so she's been doing that. She's been slowly making money. She's finding out that she needs to also supplement her income by doing other things. And then they asked her, would you go back to the life you had before? And she's like, not right now, because I feel like this is breathing a new life into me.
That's another thing that right now I have a lot with opening up the Etsy shop of crocheting. I love to crochet. It's something that suits me. It's great. I never thought of doing it as something to sell, but now I'm like, maybe I can do this. It is scary, but we've been put in a position where now we all have to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of people are deciding, you know what, I'm going to take control of my life now. It's time to take the reins and live.
Now, you mentioned, Naomi, that you were learning Portuguese. You had learned Portuguese. You had left this company that you've been at and you went to Brazil. Was the plan right away to live there, or were you going to visit the first time?
Great question. So, no, when I started, I've always dreamed of living in Brazil, but I didn't think that that would really happen. So, it started out as a 3-month volunteer program. I'm working with high school students. And literally 2 days before the program ended, the president of the association asked what volunteers wanted to stay. And there were a good maybe 13 of us American volunteers. And everyone had said, well, I wish I could. I wish I could. And I was thinking, I don't have anything to do. Yeah, I'll stay. And so that led into, I was only supposed to stay for 1 month. And then at the end of 6 months, because you can only be in Brazil for 6 months, at that
Okay.
time, they said, we love you. We want to give you a work visa. And so, yeah, I went back
Wow.
home, did the paperwork, and then I ended up living in Brazil for 3 years.
Oh, wow. Well, what part of Brazil or what city?
Yes, I was in Porto Velho, Rondônia. So that is
Uh-huh.
in the Amazon, so in the Amazonian region.
How
Wow.
fun. Oh, that is so fun.
It's so great, guys. I talk to Brazilians, and Brazilians don't go up that north. It's that hot and that high. You're really not too far from the Bolivian border. But
Okay.
the best people, the best food, so
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
imagine it's a small little town or village.
It's a city within like a village setting, right?
Oh,
So the city itself was celebrating its 100th anniversary back in 2014. So it was still pretty young.
so you're like an Amazon woman. It's awesome.
I love it. It felt like that sometimes, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, I could imagine, especially coming from a city like Chicago. You mentioned that it's a city. Now, were there some adjustments that you had to get used to?
Well, I did because actually I had started my vegan journey right before leaving for Brazil. So I had to adjust to being vegan and then just the cultural, they call it the culture shock. So I was respected. There was nothing like that. But when you're of a darker complexion and no one really kind of looks like you, it's a bit different. But it was great. I have no regrets. I've been trying to go back,
Weird.
but yeah, right now with Corona.
So after Brazil, in those 3 years, what made you decide to keep traveling? Where was your next country?
So I came back right after the Olympics in Rio, so 2016. And I came back because unfortunately Brazil and the economy was going under and they couldn't afford to keep me. So I came back in October 2016. And just like you guys, I was like, there's no way I can go back to corporate America. Now, a friend told me a few years ago about Peace Corps. And I said, I don't really want to work for Peace Corps. But to be honest, at that time, I was more wiser and I knew that I wanted to continue working with youth, but also I wanted to work with women. I wanted to inspire and promote and work in those smaller villages. And so I believe that the universe works in mysterious ways and it's a blessing. And so I looked into working for the Peace Corps and I found it, Morocco. I didn't really apply anywhere else. I said, I want this country and no other. I applied in November. Normally it takes a few weeks to get accepted. I got accepted within 6 days. So at that time, that was the longest time that I was back in Chicago. So I was there for a good 9 months. And then I moved to Morocco for 2 years. So 2017 to 19.
So you jumped from the continent of South America to the continent of Africa. Wow.
And how was the adjustment there? So you've been in Brazil for such a long time and now you're going to Africa and it's
Yeah.
I'm sure the culture is completely different as well.
Completely different, guys. Completely different. Literally night and day. It
Mhm.
was more of an adjustment because also, I had to learn Arabic. Learning Arabic and also speaking with the locals and still trying to talk about nutrition and diet and working out and fitness. So I had a lot more things that I was working within the country.
I have a curious question.
Sure.
What happened to the boyfriend?
Ah, yes,
Oh,
that was on the back of my mind too.
okay, so this was when I was still volunteering. So I called him and I told him, hey, they want me to stay in Brazil for a little bit longer. And he said, Naomi, I want you to think about what you want to do. And so he gave me a week to decide. And so that following week, it was a Sunday, we were both crying over Skype, but I broke up with him. He said, I understand, but I left the dog and a cat back in the States. So he ended up taking care of them and eventually readopted them. I had to follow my heart and my dream.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I want to tell people too. When you want to do something, there's a lot of sacrifice. You have to be willing to make those no matter how hard they are. Yeah, I cried for a long time, a year,
Mm.
literally a year. But now we're the best of friends.
Well, it sounds mature on both ends. I mean, the fact that he said, you make sure you know what you want.
Yeah.
At what point did you start this vegan nutrition journey? Because you mentioned in Morocco you started talking about nutrition and exercise. Is that where then you decided that you wanted to introduce and support other vegans and travelers in their journeys?
Interesting story about this. Now, I'll be brief, I promise. One weekend I was in Morocco and one of my students had came up to me because in Morocco it's meat and bread in every dish. And so at this time I was in Morocco for about 9 months and every week they come to me and they say, "You always go to the market for fruits and vegetables. How are you still living? You never buy any meat." And so I would tell them, I was like, "Well, I'm a vegan." They would say, "Well, can you tell me what that is? I would love to get more information about that." And so one day I was sitting at home and I was thinking, because it just started out as an idea. Diverse Vegan was just to help the women and the kids in the community about just healthy alternatives. Still, it was never about being vegan. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of go to different places in Morocco, show them how they can adjust to these healthy alternatives. And then it grew from there. But yeah, it started with just people just asking me questions and they would see me in 90-degree heat on my bicycle, sweating, going to the gym. And there they have their tradition where they have their hair covered and their bodies are covered. And so I respected that culture by covering my hair and being covered from head to toe. But they couldn't fathom a woman working out in clothes. So that's how it started.
So, as an American woman, was that an adjustment too, having to follow the traditions there?
It was an adjustment. I'll be completely honest. Being there for 2 years, I'm not trying to overgeneralize the country, but because it is such a male dominated country, for example, looking men in the eye is not a good idea. The way you dress and being covered. So when I finally left Morocco, it was hard to readjust to who Naomi was because I felt exposed if my hair was out or if I had on a short sleeve shirt. And it's interesting because now that I'm thinking about it, I became an introvert in Morocco because I had to hide myself to fulfill the respect of the culture. So I
Mm.
had to almost relearn how to be comfortable with being Naomi. I left Morocco in November of last year. I finally was able to be myself by maybe March of this year.
You had to refine yourself.
Yeah.
It's almost like living a documentary or a kind of like a research project. Like going in who you are, but it just seems like it's inevitable that you're going to pick up something that may go against who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. But still a great experience. And just as much as I would recommend Brazil, I would recommend Morocco. The food, the hospitality, it's really great.
Prior to Diverse Vegan, were you aware of the diversity within the vegan community?
Oh, absolutely. I've been vegan for 6 years, but you don't really see a lot of diversity on social media. Yeah, I knew that it was there. You have people like Tabitha Brown, and you have John Lewis with Badass Vegan, Tori Washington. You have these staples, if you will, but you don't really see anybody normal like the three of us. So I knew it was there, but it's not as prevalent as it is now or becoming.
It's definitely
Sure.
much better. I've been vegan now for 20 years because next month will be 20 years. But I remember only certain people could say it in a way that I hope was not offensive to who they were talking about. But I would say, "Oh, I'm vegan." And it was kind of like the RCA dog. They would look at me like, "Oh." And then I got certain people, usually, well, I'm gay, so I hope I can say this, but it would be gay men. They're like, "You're vegan? I thought that was only skinny white women that were vegan." It really calls to attention what you're doing with Diverse Vegan, that the media is more than entertainment, it's education.
Yes.
And if we don't see ourselves represented, that can be a challenge, that can be an issue.
What's your favorite thing about travel?
Favorite thing about traveling, honestly, guys, it's the people. Again,
Mhm.
a people person at heart. When I teach, I ask people this question: post coronavirus, do you think it's going to be okay to just walk up to people and have a conversation? And a lot of people say no, that they don't think that they can do it. And for me, that's really sad, right? Because for me, traveling, experiencing the culture, talking to the people people and the locals. That's what makes it worthwhile. And for me, I love learning languages. Even being here in Croatia, even though I know I don't say it right. For example, thank you is a walla,
Voila.
like walla bear. And then they come back and they say, okay. So for me, traveling is the people and the culture.
Well, it seems like too, as an extrovert, you're kind of born to do that in the sense of your curiosity and your desire to interact with people and to be entertained by people. It seems like being an extrovert just really helps that.
Absolutely.
Now, what got you to England? You go from South America and Brazil, then you're Africa, Morocco, and then now it's Europe and you're in England. How did you get to England,
Oh,
especially climate-wise?
especially climate wise. God, I miss the sun. A few things about England. Number one is after Morocco, I knew that my professional passion was to teach. And I had the opportunity to work with kids, but more so adults. And I really enjoy working with adults. Most of them are introverted adults. And I think that I connect with other introverts more than extroverts because I almost feel like sometimes it's a competition with us extroverted people. And but with introverts, maybe they're more like, oh wow, she's so fun and exciting and I want to learn more. So I wanted to get certified to teach. So I came to England primarily to get that certification and to build on my professional teaching resume. But also I came for love.
Ah,
Yes, I've been with my partner since 2018, and he's born and raised, so he's from Manchester. So that's the other bit.
Is he traveling with you?
Not now, but I believe you have to speak it out in the universe. We will both be living, working, and teaching in Japan. So we're waiting for we're
Wow.
waiting for Japan to open currently.
How exciting.
And then after that, I think I'll be done. I think 4 continents is good.
Now, is he an introvert or an extrovert?
I want to say he's in between. He's a Pisces. I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but sometimes they can be on both sides. So
what's your sign?
I'm a
How did-
Cancer. Yeah.
okay.
I barely started with my crystals. I haven't gotten to the horoscopes yet.
Cool.
Aries, so I don't know
Yeah.
if that means
Oh,
anything. I
fun.
think it's mellow. I've heard a lot of people say Aries are very mellow.
One of my sisters is one of my closest friends. She was an Aries. Aries women, I seem to connect with right away. So you say your boyfriend is somewhat in the middle. I think it called an ambivert. We just heard that term recently.
So I just heard that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you two meet?
Yeah,
I'm nosy.
I love it. So when I got back from Brazil in 2016, my aunt, she wanted us to travel. And so I guess I'm giving a plugger here, but there's this organization called Von Town where all expenses are included. You just have to pay for the flight to Spain. And you go and you speak conversational English to Spaniards. So again, you just pay for the flight. You're in a beautiful hotel, breakfast, lunch, dinner, unlimited wine. But you are speaking from 8 a.m. to about 11 p.m. every day for 7 days. But you're mingling with all of the different people who are part of the program. So I met him there. He was on holiday. And again, my aunt wanted to try this out. And she wanted to get me out of my funk because, I had just left Brazil. We met during Von Town and then we didn't talk for about 7 months. And then when I moved to Morocco, we kind of started back talking. Then the rest is history.
your story, just from what I've heard of it so far, is amazing. Could you have seen yourself in your former life, at least professionally, where you're at now?
It's really been a blessing. I really can't fathom how I got to where I am today. I know this is maybe for later, but being here in Croatia has really inspired me to wanting to write, to share my story, to not only just share it, but to also inspire. Because at the end of the day, that's what I do. That's the reason behind my platform. And honestly, that's the reason why I teach and the reason why I live. I am a service to others.
That is truly beautiful and awesome. You've really taken a different approach to the traveling. It kind of gives you more connection with the locals
Yes.
than just going in as a tourist to
Yes.
like, oh, look at the pretty buildings. Like,
Yeah.
you really get a sense of the culture. If I travel, I don't want to go as a tourist. I
Yes.
want to go with the locals, with the
Yes.
culture. I love cultures. I love the diversity of all the different cultures. And immersing yourself in somebody else's culture and really learning, like Morocco, you really immersed yourself in
Yeah.
that culture. And it also brings you an appreciation to your own life.
Yes.
I love listening to your journey of how you found your way of going into these places and doing something for a community.
Yeah.
Now, as a woman, were you traveling by yourself?
Yeah, I always travel alone. For me, I really want to give this back to being vegan as well, whereby it helps to give me the energy, the stamina, that youthfulness. And it gets lonely. It does get lonely. But when you're with community, and I think you said that perfectly, Jenny, whereby I don't know how to be a tourist. I don't know how to just go someplace and then leave. I have to stay for a while.
Right?
To really get the sense of a place, I think you gotta stick around for a little bit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, one of the things I got over, and I'm not ashamed to admit it now, but I traveled before I came on this journey I'm on now, and people are like, "Oh, you went to this country, you went to that country. Oh, what'd you do?" I was like, "I went to the grocery store. It was exciting." And they're like, "Okay."
Yes.
Because every country is different. Even the shopping carts are different. When I was in London and I went to Tesco, and I'm like sitting there and I'm pulling, I'm like, okay, I can't. And they're like, oh, you need coins to use the cart. And I'm like, oh, do you take credit card? And I'm like, no, you don't have any coins. I mean, it was a situation that I get embarrassed, start sweating a little bit. All of a sudden, it's a scene. I'm on the news, you know. But it's part
Oh,
of the adventure, you know, those types of situations are, I'm gonna write about it, but being a passenger in England, because they drive on the other side of the road, like I've kind of gotten used to walking, but being a passenger, because you're used to cars coming a certain way. So I'm a passenger in a car and I see the car come the other way and I'm like, oh my God,
It's really an experience.
I'm like grabbing on my seatbelt, like, oh my God, they're gonna crash into us. Like, no, that's the way they're supposed to be coming. But yeah, just all that to say that's part of the excitement. You know, as you said, getting immersed into the culture of where you're at, that's part of it. And it of course makes for great stories. You know, the adventure is not maybe riding the camel or seeing that's part of it, but the adventure is figuring out where to buy, you know, your vegetables or like me coming from Sweden, they're mostly a cashless society, and I got used to that. And when I went to, I forgot to mention, I'm an Aquarian. I'm born at the end of January, so I
Right.
treated myself to going to Berlin, where I always wanted to visit. So I went from Sweden to Berlin, and just whenever I went there, they wanted cash.
Yeah, Berlin, yeah, they're very money touchy, right? They need that.
So, what is your favorite country?
It's always been Brazil up until I came here to England. And again, that could also be because, the love aspect is there. I don't love England for the weather, but the people here in England, the food, even the sense of culture. I was in England from December up until August before coming here to Croatia. And I really just love the sincerity of the people. So I don't know. Brazil, England, it's a toss up.
Well, it sounds like there's a love for different reasons.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
true.
Now, I have a question with England. You know, we both speak the same language, but we don't. And I have to be honest, I'm hyper aware of American English is
Mhm.
not English English.
It's funny too because with me being there for so long, I've began to pick up on a lot of the words and phrases. It's interesting. I like it because some of the words that you hear, oh man, now I can't think of any. But me, I've learned how to spell them in
Mm,
the British English way. So practice with a S instead of a C. Or like I do say a lot, I'll sort that out later
right.
instead of I'll do it later or whatever, right? So yeah, you do have that different type of grammar, but I like it. There's people who I know who are American and they sound 100% British. And
Yeah, I've met that here, yeah.
I don't know how that happens. I mean, I know that you can pick up maybe the dialect, maybe the phrases, but how does your whole throat pattern?
well, I can understand the dialect, especially in Spanish. Here in California, you have so many different types of Latin people, so they do have different dialects. They use different words, and you're like, what? Even for like drawer, I didn't realize there was so many words for drawer. Like my ex-husband and some of my friends from different South American countries, I was like, you guys have like four different types of words for one thing. But then getting into the dialect and the accents of stuff, my daughter was a fan of Pepper Pig. That girl spoke in a British accent.
I've heard that.
Everybody thought, oh, it's her dad from England. I was like, no, she's Hispanic. She's like, Mommy, can you help me?
Oh my God. But
For the longest time, she's this little 2-year-old speaking with a like English accent.
that's okay though, Diddy, because kids, they could do that. But I'm talking
Yeah.
about someone that's 38, 25. How is that possible? What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
I have not been here as long as you've been here, and it fell out, and I don't know how, and I was so embarrassed. And I said, "Oh yeah, me and my friend Jenny, we have a podcast." And I was like, "Really, I am not trying to
Yeah,
do this."
it's true. It just happens. Just happens.
Yeah.
I will say, like, mom, which is American, and I notice here it doesn't feel natural for me to say that because I hear mom here. I want to say mom, but feel like if I say it, they're gonna be like,
Yeah. I don't say my. I even type it that way, mom.
mom, yeah.
Like, how's your mom? They're like, who? I was like, oh, Chicago voice. How's your mom?
Some of the books that I read are from English or British authors, and I remember running across the word mum for the first time. It took me forever to realize that's correct.
I have a friend in Sweden who is English, and so we were out somewhere visiting another friend, and we were helping out. And he goes, "Oh, could you go grab me a bin liner?" I walked away, and then I walked back. "Oh, I'm sorry, what is that?" He goes, "The bin liner for the bin." And I said, "Oh," he goes, "Well, what do you say?" And I said, "Oh, we say trash bag."
It sounds so fancy.
It
I
does.
feel like that's something you put inside like a little drawer or a basket to
Yeah.
hide.
I wouldn't even want to put trash in a bin. Like, no, it's too cute.
Yeah,
It's a bin.
exactly. Yeah, bin.
Again, it's the things that I think are beautiful. Even in the US, there's different little things because Shinny traveled across the country recently. And,
Nice.
you know, a food like Mexican food can taste different wherever you go. And I noticed that when I went from Arizona to California. But
Mhm.
those little things, even in the US, exist.
I definitely got a taste of all that good food.
That's exciting.
It was exciting. I made it from LA to Atlanta, Georgia. My favorite was, of course, New Orleans because we don't have that much Cajun cooking down here in LA. It was interesting to taste all the different types of Hispanic food and the different ways they cook them.
Yeah.
But my favorite was, of course, the jambalaya
Yeah.
and the gumbo. Oh my goodness.
I grew up off of gumbo, yeah. Because my
Yeah.
grandmother was Louisiana descent, so she made all that. So yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff. Have you ever tried succotash,
No. What is
Eric?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it is.
It's basically like a corn tomato soup or tomato paste type of dish where you have okra, you have corn, you have maybe stewed tomatoes, tons of different spices. Eat it with cornbread. Oh my God.
As a vegan, I
I,
said I miss
I
cornbread.
yes, miss cornbread.
Oh, I miss cornbread. Not like Jiffy cornbread, but like
No.
real, like in the iron pot
Yeah.
cornbread. I
Well,
miss
that
cornbread.
that may have to be another episode because yeah, cornbread is life.
My last question is, aside from teaching and traveling, and of course, vegan, is there anything else that you're passionate about?
I love reading and writing. I'm not as good as Eric or maybe even you as well, Jenny. I used to like writing when I was younger, but I really want to get back into it. And like I mentioned earlier, I think sharing my story would be a great way to
Yes.
get that writing out. But yeah, I love reading. Currently, I'm trying to read more about minimalism and
Okay.
living simply just because I've been living that way for years, but I kind of want to learn something different. I have not found an author yet whereby I've been like, oh, I learned something. Maybe that's a good thing, but I do like reading all types of books. So yeah, that's what I like to do.
Well, you're in good
Oh,
company with reading and writing for sure with the two of
yeah,
us.
that's our thing.
Yeah.
Yay.
With minimalism, you have that experience as a traveler.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like you definitely have a couple books on your hands
Yeah.
just with your own story,
Thank you.
Yeah.
one of each
Yeah.
continent.
Yeah.
And then also, it's funny you mentioned minimalism.
Hmm.
I recently came across a Instagram page, and it's this girl who lives out of a van, and she travels around the US with her two dogs in a van. And she was talking about just you have to condense
Yeah.
everything. It's what you need, not what you want at that
Right.
point.
As a person of color, how do you navigate when you're in places where you're one of a few and there may be not rudeness, but a lot of staring
This answer is probably coming more from an extroverted point of view. But for me, that's been my whole journey from Brazil to Morocco to England to here in Croatia. It's something, yes, be aware of, but to not let it affect you. For me, they would stare and I would say, oh, hi. The interesting one is with the kids because a lot of the kids, they'll stare, but a lot of people don't really think to acknowledge the young ones. So I actually like to wave to the young ones first. And then the young ones wave and then they go on about their business. I guess my advice would be to use that as an opportunity to either start a dialogue or conversation or just to say hi. Because a lot of times they're not really looking to stare, they're just trying to understand. For example, I'm here in Croatia on a remote island. I'll be honest, I am the only black thing on the island. And for the first 2 weeks, I would smile. I do my nod with my hat. That's my way of like saying hello. And at first, they don't acknowledge it. They don't say anything back. Now I've been here for a month and they see me coming and they're like, hey, voila. And I'm just like, oh, wow. So, I think it's just breaking the ice because they're just curious.
Thank you for answering that. And that's really good advice. And touching on too how the extroverted person
Hmm.
processes that over somebody like me who's more introverted. That's really good advice. I'm not going to overanalyze it, just to say
Okay.
thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I feel like that is a very extroverted thing.
A lot of them may not see us except for what they see on TV. They may even think, oh my God, is this person like a rapper or is this person famous? So again, it's that whole stem of curiosity. So I would recommend to those of you who are introverts, even if you do your quirky, because I'm quirky. So I'll maybe do a little like cheeky, well, look at me sounding British, cheeky little wave, right? So do
Leak
a
it
little
out.
cheeky little wave, and that would be fine. And if they don't wave back, it's okay. They're going to remember you as being a positive person. Oh, this
Yeah.
person smiled and they waved.
You touched on something, Jenny. You both did. It's a way to educate. I did ask my friends in Stockholm before I came here, and I was like, I just want to know, who do you see when you see me? And they said, well, we don't see American because you don't come off that way. They see only a certain type on TV usually. But yeah, like you said, there seems to be a curiosity like, oh, you're American. Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting it. Okay.
So, Naomi, where can we find you? Where can our listeners go find you and join you on this
Yes,
journey?
guys, please. Again, you can find me on Instagram at Diverse Vegan. That is DIVERSE You can also find me on my website, diversevegan.com. And again, I'm not here to promote veganism, but I'm here to share stories of digital nomads from all walks of life. And I'm here to help you reach your healthy alternative goals, whether you want to eat better for one day or you want to make a change, there's no bias here. So
Mm.
everyone is welcome to join the community.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Thank you
Yes.
again for joining us today. I'm
Thank
just super
you.
excited that you were able to make it and look forward to sharing your platform with our audience.
Thank you guys so much.
I loved meeting you, and let's stay in touch and give us an update. Maybe you can come on when you're in Japan.
Yes.
Yes, that would be great. And I would love to, yes, keep in contact with both of you guys as well.
Almost definitely. I look forward to meeting in person.
Yes,
Me too.
yes. Thank you guys so much. Look, stay safe and just stay positive. And again, just with our mental health, just know that every day is just a day and it gets better. Bye, guys.
Thank
Bye bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you for spending time with us. If you have questions or a story you'd like to share, email us at wallflowersinbloom2020@gmail.com.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at wallflowers_in_bloom and search for us on Facebook under Wallflowers in Bloom.
If you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and Castbox. Until next time.